What if you wanted... But God said...
Hello, one and all. I'm Jinlong, the anime cat girl. Nya! Good God. And what the hell was Cats 2019? Wow, I'm sure doing a lot of stuff with the cat girls recently, huh? I did a short video on Cats 2019 once, back when I first saw it in theaters almost a year ago, but I didn't really go into depth on what was seriously wrong with this movie. Well, besides the nightmare fuel CGI, that is. Recently, I gathered up the courage to watch it again after a year. So, with a fresh view, with a new perspective, and an open mind, have my opinions changed? Could it be that this is actually an avant-garde diamond in the rough that I just didn't have the big brain necessary to comprehend at the time? Is this movie actually really good? No. No, it is not. The more I look at this movie, the more it intrigues me how something like this could ever have been made and approved by human hands. The most universally hated, critically destroyed blockbuster movie of the decade, probably. How the hell did this monstrosity come to be? Why have all the choices I've made in my lifetime led me to consciously coexist at the same time as this? But to explain what the hell was Cats 2019, I first have to explain what the hell was Cats 1981. One of the most successful long-running shows of all time, but also one of the most divisive when it comes to theater lovers. Like, you either love it or hate it, there really is no in-between. See, Cats was the first mega musical. Mega musicals are defined as huge shows with large-scale productions and done all around the world. Like Les Mis, Wicked, Phantom of the Opera, Lion King, you know, all the big ones. The most well-known musicals all tend to be mega musicals. Cats was the first of its kind way back in 1981. Like, no joke, this thing was so successful that it ran in London for 21 years straight and on Broadway for 18 years. The show even got a revival as recently as 2016, which I imagine would have been the excuse to make the 2019 movie. But before I go on, I'll give a lot of credit to Sideways and his very informative video on the music of Cats. He really helped me comprehend how this musical works in terms of music a lot better. Okay, so this musical is the kind of thing that gets people fighting. Is it great? Is it awful? Is it even a musical at all? Yeah, there's actually a lot of heavy debate on that. And all that conflict is because of how Cats is structured. This musical is not your traditional musical. Let's start by where Cats tends to lose a lot of people, the plot. So many people complain that it's such a confusing show because there's no plot, but that's the thing. There is one, it's just very vague and basic, and it only kicks off at the very end. It's really not complicated because this thing is 90% meaningless spectacle and 10% discernible story. The plot of Cats is that there are a tribe of cats called the Jellicles, and every year they pick somebody to sacrifice so that they can ascend to the Heaviside Layer. You know,
like a cult.
But yeah, that's the plot, and in a traditional musical, that's where you expect the protagonist to sing a big ballad about how they want more than this provincial life. This is called the I Want song, and it's essential for establishing who the main character is, what they want, and for the audience to empathize with them. Except that doesn't happen in Cats because there is no protagonist. What we get instead is just a bunch of cats introducing themselves via song. It's just, hey, I'm this cat and I do this, for an hour and a half. And that's for a reason, it's because the cats all want the same thing. Monkastrap already explained it, they all want to be the Jellicle choice and go to the Heaviside Layer. So therefore, it's not necessary to give anyone an I Want song. What we get instead are called I Am songs. These songs are actually given to villains a lot of the time. They delve into who the character is and what they do, but don't go any deeper into their wants or desires or drive. So for that reason, there aren't any individual I Want songs in Cats. No, actually, that's not true. There is one.
Memory, all alone in the moonlight.
Grisabella is an old lady cat who used to be known as the Glamour Cat. She was beautiful and loved, but she grew old and her beauty faded. She used to be a Jellicle cat, but isn't anymore, it's unclear why, but she wants to be a Jellicle cat again, and she'll do anything. She's the only cat who has a different desire from the rest of them. She doesn't directly want to be the Jellicle choice, she just wants to go back to the tribe and be loved again. Memory is such an impactful ballad, an emotionally touching song because it's the only true I Want song in the show. From the first moment you hear it, you know she's gonna be the Jellicle choice, because suddenly all the other songs become irrelevant compared to this emotional anguish in musical form. Memory is the backbone of Cats. The entire show relies on this one song to have its big emotional impact. So therefore, one could argue that Cats' protagonist is actually Grizabella? Well, no, actually, because the story doesn't follow her. She mostly appears in the sidelines while the other cats scoff at her or reject her. See, this is why this show is so weird, because by all accounts, Grizabella should be the main character, but we follow the quote-unquote antagonist throughout the whole show, up until the very end. Let me just briefly summarize the show to make it easier for everybody to understand. We start with a big ensemble number, Jellicle Songs for Jellicle Cats, where everybody's singing about what constitutes a Jellicle cat. Then Monkastrap explains that they meet at the Jellicle Ball once a year, and the leader, Old Deuteronomy, chooses someone to go to the Heaviside Lair to be reborn and come back to a new life. Then we get a bunch of songs introducing different cats in the tribe. Jenny Anydot's the Lazy Gumby cat, Rum Tum Tugger the Fuckboy cat, Buster Jones the Glutton cat, Mungo Jerry and Rumple Teaser the Mischievous Twins, then Old Deuteronomy, the leader of the Jellicle cats. Then we get an 8-minute long, elaborate, pure dance sequence called the Jellicle Ball that has different parts to it. But then Grizabella crashes the party. Since she's so desperate to join the Jellicles again, in the middle of the Jellicle Ball she tries to dance, but she's too old and she can't pull it off, which prompts her to sing the first part of Memory. I'm highlighting this because people often get confused. Memory has 2 parts. So after everybody's done being sad, we get a number to make you straight up depressed, Gus the theater cat. Gus is an old man cat who used to be a great actor, but now he's grown old, and he sadly reminisces about his golden days on stage. Some productions include a play he did called Growl Tiger's Last Stand, which was when Gus played a pirate cat named Growl Tiger. I bring this up because Growl Tiger is in the movie for some reason, but I'll get to that. We get Skimbleshanks the railway cat, and then Macavity, the villain, shows up to capture Old Deuteronomy. Yeah, Cat has an actual villain, but honestly he doesn't do much at all besides this one thing. We get a kick-ass power song by these 2 lovely ladies about Macavity, and then there's a dance fight where Macavity escapes by causing a blackout. Rum Tum Tugger comes back and tells him about Mr. Mistopheles, and he sings while Mistopheles does the dancing. He brings Old Deuteronomy back, and by then it's almost daylight, time is almost up. Grizabella comes back, and in her last attempt, with the last ounce of her strength, performs the more iconic part of Memory. After that, it's pretty obvious that she's the Jellicle choice, so she gets chosen in a sense to the Heaviside Lair. We get a closing number, we learn that a cat is not a dog, and the show ends. Whew. Okay, now to make sense of all that. To quote Sideways, Cats is what happens when you spend an entire Mario game inside Bowser's castle. Things get pretty monotonous, and Mario only arrives to shake things up at the very end. But still, this is the structure of Cats. This is an ensemble show. All the cats have equal importance to each other, which is why there's no protagonist. Which brings me to the 2019 movie, because now they decided to add a protagonist?
Jellicle songs for Jellicle cats. Jellicle songs for Jellicle cats. Jellicle songs for Jellicle cats.
This is Victoria, and she's an interesting, yet pretty bad choice for a main character. In the show, she's the white cat, and her role is mostly dancing, no singing at all. Though in fact, she's the most difficult female role to play, because of the insane amount of balance, endurance, and upper body strength you gotta have to do this stuff. Whenever Grisabella's on stage, everybody shuns her, but some younger cats run up to her out of curiosity to figure out who she is. Victoria is one of those. But the older cats always get them away or stop them from getting close. Then at the end when Grisabella screams, "Touch me!" Victoria is the first to go up and touch her, effectively welcoming her back into the group. Now, Sideways might have pointed out that Victoria herself has no real significance here. It could have been anyone. This action isn't important because it's Victoria, it's important because no one stopped Victoria from touching Grisabella. While it makes sense, I sort of disagree. There are definite parallels between these 2 characters. Grisabella used to be Victoria. She used to be the center of attention, the most beautiful cat in the tribe. Victoria is this pure white young cat, a symbol of innocence and purity. So to have a cat as pristine as her be the first one to touch Grisabella, who's so tarnished and dirty with age and neglect, well, there's definitely some symbolism there. But, that doesn't mean out of everyone here that Victoria has to be the protagonist? What? Look, I can sort of see what the director's thought process was here. Cats is a musical that frequently breaks the fourth wall. Like, the cats are explaining all that stuff about themselves and their culture to the audience, not each other. That's gonna get quite awkward to do in a movie, so they picked one of the cats to be an outsider to the tribe so she could have things explained to her. Except they didn't fully commit to that, because we still get like 5 minutes straight of Catty Dench speaking directly to the camera at the very end. Just letting you know, when I had to sit through this at the theater, it initiated my fight or flight response. Plus, making Victoria a protagonist the way they did made her a perpetually confusing character who can't seem to make up her mind on how she behaves. Sometimes she's naive and confused by the world around her, and other times she seems like she knows everything. So, does she know what the Jellicle Cats are about? Or not? She seems to have selective knowledge disorder. I would say Cats is more of a musical opera or ballet, not like a traditional Broadway musical. I'm not saying that adding a protagonist wouldn't have worked, because it would, but only if the rest of the musical also went through a few massive changes. But no, they kept the rest of it pretty much the same. All the song numbers are still there in the exact same order, but now performed so much shittier than they should be. So let's go through the biggest sins of Cats 2019, and how much it bastardized the original Cats. Which brings me to what's possibly this movie's biggest musical offender. Believe it or not, the casting in this movie actually wasn't all bad. Francesca Hayward and Stephen McRae are both principal dancers at the Royal Ballet, and Robbie Fairchild is actually a great actor in his element. These were people hired based on their talent and dance ability, not celebrity status. As a result, it's really a shame that you have to peel through layers of CGI nightmare to see the genuinely good work they put into their performance. Hell, even Taylor Swift and Jason Derulo didn't honestly do that bad. And then, there's the rest of the cast. Kill me! Maybe you've seen Rebel Wilson in her Pitch Perfect days, and even then opinions on her were mixed, to say the least. But good God. I never watched Pitch Perfect, but I had a notion that she could, at the very least, sing? Minimally carry a tune? How could I have been so wrong? Even if it didn't look like a Vivid Sleep Paralysis tea party, this musical number is just abysmally performed. And you know, half of it isn't even Rebel Wilson's fault. It's just the material she was given is wrong. It's straight up wrong.
When the day's hustle and bustle is done, then the Gumby Cat's work is but hardly begun.
When the day's hustle and bustle is done, then the Gumby Cat's work is but hardly begun.
Jenny Anidot's number is supposed to be sung by 3 people, it's not a solo. There's a melody and a harmony. One person sings one and 2 people sing the other. So by having Rebel Wilson just sing one makes it sound wrong no matter which one of the 2 she picks. Here, let me give her a hand.
When the day's hustle and bustle is done, then the Gumby Cat's work is but hardly begun. And when all the family's in bed and asleep, I tuck up my skirts to the basement to creep.
Jenny Anidots is a fat grandma cat who's really lazy and sleeps during the day, but at night she gets to work in teaching the mice to crochet and the cockroaches to dance and stuff to reform them into society. And the music reflects that. The number alternates between Monka's Trap starting out nice and slow to reflect her day life.
I have a Gumby cat in mind. Her name is Jenny Anydots.
And then it switches to a faster pace to reflect her nightlife.
When the day's hustle and bustle is done, then the Gumby Cat's work is but hardly begun.
So there's a reason for when the number slows down and speeds up. And what does Rebel Wilson do? Slows down whenever the hell she wants to, effectively ruining everything that makes this number work.
I am deeply concerned with the ways of the mice.
She's deeply concerned with the ways of the mice. Their behavior's not good and their manners not nice.
Of course we gotta mention the most horrifying part, right? See, this is why Cats as it is doesn't work anywhere but on a stage. I think this is a good tangent to go into why the stage costumes work. Because on the show, when the actress takes off a costume, that's what it is! A costume! The dancers are meant to resemble more of an abstraction or metaphor for cats than real cats. The way they did it in the movie doesn't work because they're trying to convince us these are real cats. The uncanny valley blurs the line between reality and fiction, so this costume change does not work. I'm highlighting this because there's multiple moments where they try to treat this movie like the stage production when it's not, and one where they nearly completely remove the fourth wall breaks at that. If you pay attention to the costumes, the actors wear specific pieces of clothing to reach a balance. They wear wigs that hide their human ears under them, and the leg warmers work to break up the human silhouette, but also to not hide the person under it completely. For a movie version, making them look naked with shaved heads and no human ears looks uncanny. Changes had to be made, but Tom Hooper, the director, thought just putting everybody in tracksuits and making them dance on a green screen was enough and called it a day. Even if putting mice with human faces wasn't reaching into Lovecraftian horror enough, again, in the show, Jenny Anydots is a kind but strict grandma who teaches the mice manners. Here, she's a ruthless dictator, and if her subjects don't sing and dance just the way she wants them to, she will consume them. And just when you think you've seen all the eldritch horrors within,
Get out of this kitchen now!
Let's dance! Don't do anything about wow, dear.
So actually, I'll be honest, Jason Derulo isn't that bad at playing Rum Tum Tugger. This is like the most sexually charged number in the show cause Rum Tum Tugger's a fuckboy cat. It's notable how much they toned that down in this scene to make it family friendly, ooh. Overall, the only interesting thing about it is how everyone is so goddamn thirsty for Derulo's milk. Oh, when you thought Rebel Wilson just by herself was insufferable, don't worry, because now we got 2 personified sources of human suffering in this movie. Now we have 2 idiots constantly interrupting numbers with horrific cat puns.
Stop milking it!
Look, the Buster Jones number is pretty forgettable, and the show would be just fine if it was cut entirely. Buster Jones is a fat cat who likes to eat fancy food and spends all day eating. Cool, we got it. We don't need James Corden to get what's a pretty standard boring number and turn it into the shittiest improv comedy known to man.
Too soon. Right, well that's not going to work, is it? Okay? Look at you and look at me and you know
that I'm sensitive about my size.
The only solace I can take in this unfunny, gross-looking mess is that he gets kidnapped as soon as he finishes. Yeah, I didn't mention the kidnapping thing, did I? Idris Elba gets to be McCavity, but he's as forgettable and as much of a joke as the one in the show. He's trying to eliminate his competition, so he wants to go to the Heaviside Layer too? Why? He's not a Jellicle. In the show, he was just a mean old cat who messed with everybody, but now he wants to be the Jellicle choice when he's not even a Jellicle. So he catnaps the contestants, I guess, and puts them on a boat, where Growl Tiger is his henchman.
What?
Remember Growl Tiger from the show? He's a character that Gus the Theater Cat played in one of his plays. So he's a fictional character inside this universe. So what, he's real now? But okay, whatever. This is like the least of our problems when it comes to this movie. Everybody gets scared because McCavity arrived and they run away, and Victoria's found by Mungo Jerry and Rumple Teaser. This number can be a fun one if it's done right, and these actors aren't actually that bad at it. But this part serves to highlight a severe directing issue in this movie. Tom Hooper directed a musical before, the Les Mis movie, and that one was a dumpster fire all on its own, specifically because he insisted it was all sung live. Yeah, you heard me. These people were singing 8 to 10 hours a day, ripping their vocal cords apart for what could be avoided if they just recorded this in studio like a sane director would. Here's the thing. If you want to sing, you gotta breathe properly. If you're sword fighting or doing consecutive backflips, makes it kinda hard to sing at the same time, doesn't it? I'm not sure if Hooper made the whole cast and cast sing live too, but I wouldn't put it past him because it explains why this happens.
incurably given to rob. Ramp, oh taser, or after supper, one of the girls.
They're trying to sing, but Hooper's constantly making them do these complex moves that throw off their breathing. They can't sing like this, Hooper! God! After they spend a whole song breaking stuff around a house, suddenly it's this one vase that wakes up the dog. When Victoria gets stuck and the twins just leave her there, Mr. Mistopheles comes in with an air of cringe to try to rescue her. Yes, this Mr. Mistopheles.
Oh, well, I never was ever a cat so clever as magical Mr. Mistopheles.
So they made him a clumsy, insecure little goof in this one, probably because they thought it looked cute. But to me, all it does is undermine the badass he was in the show. We then get Judi Dench Geronimo's appearance. The vocals here are decent, and that's about the only good thing in this scene. If you stare too long, your eyes might just catch on fire. But I'm gonna point out here that Judi Dench might just be the best looking cat in the movie. And you know why? You know why? It's because her design resembles the original stage costumes. Her fur masks the human silhouette instead of making her look bald. Yeah, her uncanny human face is still there with no makeup on, but it's leagues better than this, isn't it? So now we get the movie's version of the Jellicle Ball scene. I guess I give props for trying something new with it. What I will complain about is how Tom Hooper does not know how to shoot a musical, especially not one that is 60% dance. Like, what is this? There's actors moving around in the background, but he just blurs them out? What is this shot? There's people dancing in the foreground, and there's objects blocking the way. It's sad because some of the dancing actually looks kinda cool, cause the real professional dancers are giving it their all. Even Jason Derulo's rocking it out here, like these dancers are really trying, even if they are just human face Snapchat filters on cats. Victoria then goes outside for a bit, and Grisabella Hudson sings the first part of Memory. Which, let's be honest, of course she's good, that's her whole shtick. Ah, and now we get the obnoxious Oscar bait, new song! The song itself isn't bad, except it totally mocks Memory and Grisabella's entire character. Let me read the lyrics properly without the sing-songy pretty music. Born into nothing, at least you have something to cling to. Visions of dazzling rooms I'll never get let into, and the memories were lost long ago. But hey, at least you have beautiful ghosts. Like, the song is saying,
check your privilege, lady! Compared to me, you actually had it pretty good. I was abandoned in an alleyway. At least you got your memories to cling to, I got nothing.
Like, is this the message you want to send to the emotional backbone of your musical? Words cannot describe how stupid this song is. So, Victoria's the protagonist in a musical, she needs a song of her own, obviously. She needs an I Want song as a way for the audience to actually give a remote shit about her. And they put it halfway through the movie? Like, at this point, no one cares about her. The moment to establish her character passed long ago, way back in the beginning. And her song mocks the most important song in the movie? It's obvious this song was created for Oscar bait. Like, that's beyond clear. As good as Jennifer Hudson's rendition of Memory was, it wouldn't win them Best Original Song. I think people know how much the VFX and CGI team was abused in Cats, but not many know that they called Andrew Lloyd Webber, the original creator of the Cats musical, to compose this song with Taylor Swift in about a day, and was given even less time to teach it to poor Francesca Hayward here, who's a dancer, not a singer. Her voice sounds subpar compared to the rest of the cast. Well, actually, maybe not. But it's her literal first time professionally singing. She didn't do that bad of a job at all, but like, she's the main character in a musical. We can't have this, Tom Hooper. But I'll hold my tongue for now and elaborate later. So Judi Dench Geronimo talks to Victoria, doesn't seem to care that she was abandoned.
I was abandoned.
Oh, poor thing. Would you like to see me make the Jellicle choice?
I was abandoned.
Oh no! Anyway.
And they go back to the theater to see Gus the Theater Cat, now played by the, frankly at this point, fallen star Ian McKellen. While it's poetic that they got such a seasoned actor who's not in his prime anymore to play Gus, Ian McKellen just can't keep a rhythm.
Gus is the cat at the theater door.
Plus, this time they got rid of Jelly Lora, who was there singing part of a song for him, and made him do the whole thing himself.
Gus is the cat at the theater door.
In the show, she wasn't there for no reason. Her presence served to indicate just how weak and helpless Gus had become with age. The cats rarely ever sing about themselves in the show. Usually, it's other cats singing about them. This sort of demonstrates their connection to each other as a community. Now, by having everyone in the movie sing about themselves, it just makes them sound pretty narcissistic, and like their desire to win the competition is more important than their community. Which it shouldn't be, but that's the image the movie passes. But all this time, I've been talking about what the movie did wrong, why it sucks, negative. I think it's time we talk about some positives. Namely, what I think is this movie's saving grace.
I'd been busy in the luggage van.
In the show, this number was also pretty standard. It was even one of the first to be dropped entirely if for some reason they needed the show to be shorter. So there was no reason for movie Skimbleshanks to slap this hard. You know, the original Jenny Antidote's number also slapped on stage because they had a sick tap dancing part. But I'm actually glad they didn't do it in this movie, because if Rebel Wilson can't even hold a tune, I don't want to picture her attempt at tap dancing. But you know who they got to tap dance instead? This is the god himself, Stephen McRae, professional ballet and tap dancer at the Royal Ballet with Francesca Hayward. The reason this dance number slaps is because they got someone who can actually dance well. And like Francesca, this was also his literal first time singing. I think this is the only number that turned out better than the show. I was watching this in the theater thinking, wow, this guy's back must hurt a lot from carrying this entire movie. But again, as great of a dancer as he is, not even his raw talent, not even him pulling off these perfect pirouettes like they're nothing, can stop Tom Hooper from butchering camera angles as he sees fit. Stop cutting! Just focus on him properly, damn it! We can't see any of the dance! What are these shots? What do they tell us? What's the reason for zooming out this far? But oh well, Skimbleshanks can't even finish his bop-tastic number because he gets catnapped immediately. Taylor Swift then comes in to sing about McCavity, and like Jason Derulo, she's honestly not that bad. The only thing that's distracting is she can't decide whether she's British or American.
But when a crime's discovered, then McCavity's not there.
After she drugs everybody with glittery catnip, McCavity makes his grand entrance. Oh god. Oh no. Nope. Idris, please put your coat back on. Please, sir, this is a Wendy's. So he attempts to force Judi Dench to choose him because he's the only contestant left. And she's like, nah! So he's like,
I wanna! The Jellicle choice.
I wanna!
And he catnaps her to the boat because he's a literal child, I guess. So everybody's moping around about Judi Dench when Victoria decides to throw her cat boyfriend under the bus and put him on the spot.
We can't just magic her back.
Yes, we can. You're a magician.
Really? I can't.
You could try.
So now it's time for probably the most beloved number in the show! Nah, don't expect that in this movie. Not with Laurie Davidson as the Mr. Mistopheles. And the worst part is, Robbie Fairchild is there the whole time, singing with him on the sidelines, when he could do better. I feel like I've been sleeping on Robbie this whole time, and that's because the movie was too. Robbie Fairchild is a triple threat. He can act, sing, and dance like hell, and you don't use him? Why not make him Mr. Mistopheles? Because guess what? Mistopheles sucked! Ass! In the show, he's the most difficult male part to do, because you need to have 10 degrees in ballet to pull this shit. He has to do an insane amount of flips and spins, which makes it really hard to sing at the same time. So for that reason, usually Rum Tum Tugger is the one singing, while he's playing Olympic gymnast around the stage. To play Mr. Mistopheles, you gotta be a straight-up Sportacus. Some argue his number is the best in the entire show because of all these crazy acrobatics he pulls off. Guess what they didn't have him do in the movie? That's right, everything that made him remotely entertaining to watch. Oh, but they couldn't just ruin Mr. Mistopheles by himself. They had to butcher his whole number along with him by making it start and restart over and over and over and over.
Mr. Mistopheles.
Magical Mr.
Mistopheles. Mr. Mistopheles.
Oh, well, I never was there ever a cat so clever.
But I didn't even mention their worst crime regarding Mistopheles. You know what was the worst thing they made him? Hetero. No, really, it's actually extremely funny that they shipped him with Victoria, while the Cats fandom has a different idea. Yes, there is a Cats fandom for the show. That's a thing. But there's a fandom headcanon that Mistopheles actually had something going on with Rum Tum Tugger, which at this point isn't even a headcanon. Just looking at the show would tell you it's nearly fact.
Heterosexual cats, heterosexual cats, heterosexual cats, heterosexual cats.
You're gay! I'm gay! He's gay!
But actually, maybe movie Mistopheles isn't that hetero after all. Because now, for some reason, it's Monkastrap who's suggestively singing for him.
Cat is so clever.
This magical Mr. Mistopheles.
And hey, I'm not one of these people who are like, oh my god, two boys coexisting in the same room, they must be gay. But it's one thing to hug your fellow homies. It's another to do this. What is this? Though I guess this works much better, cause can you imagine how much more awkward this scene would be if they tried to get the Rulo Tugger to do it instead? But all jokes aside, Robbie Fairchild is a literal musical theater monster. He's just casually doing these insane pirouettes and flips like it's easy. I wanna see Laurie Davidson do that. Come on. Just a little nerdy detail, Mr. Mistopheles' number is so hard to pull off, cause there's a certain part where he has to do 24 consecutive pirouettes. And, what is Robbie Fairchild just casually doing in the Jellicle Ball? Like, are you kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? You picked a professional ballet dancer to play Victoria, as you should, but you gave the most talented male dancer here a pure singing role. And you cast the most difficult dance role of the show to a guy who can't fucking dance. He can barely even sing. He was in one TV show, and that's his only notable role. Who is Laurie Davidson? Who called him here? Mr. Tom Hooper, did you even slightly look at your damn source material? Did you watch the 1998 film version once and called it a day? Cause boy, it sure seems that way. But enough about that, because now Jennifer Hudson has to give us her Oscar performance. So Victoria is touching Grisabella long before she's supposed to for some reason, and they make it back to the theater so that she can make us all cry. Honestly, Jennifer Hudson was called here to do one job, and it was to deliver a kick-ass power ballad version of Memory so that they could add it to the Spotify playlist. And she does her job, I'll say that. Is it worthy of an Oscar? I'm not sure. But in the right circumstances, I think she deserved one. So she gets picked as the Jellicle choice, she gets to ride the chandelier up to the sky, naked McCavity Elba is still there for some reason, and we get an extremely uncomfortable 5 minutes of Judi Dench speaking directly to the camera about how a cat is not a dog. So this is the part that confused me, because this whole time, Victoria was the outsider. She was the one having things explained to her. She was the audience self-insert, so there were no fourth wall breaks throughout the whole movie. But now they changed that up? Now they have Cady Dench break the fourth wall in an almost completely static shot instead of saying it to Victoria? Again, for the 10th time today, in the show, Old Deuteronomy is delivering the song speech to the audience, in a sort of, what have you guys learned about cats and who we are today? So with having Judi Dench break the fourth wall like this, is she acknowledging that she was aware there was an audience the whole time? But whatever, who cares, because after she's done, it's never addressed again. So the movie ends with Victoria joining the cat cult, in a cute little shot of Jennifer Katzen going off into the sun, burning alive. The end. God. Okay. I think we can collectively agree this was a dumpster fire. Like, it had a couple parts that were good, some dance numbers looked cool, one or two musical numbers were actually half decent, if not better than the originals. But they're just not enough. They're not enough to save the movie as is. Cause that's the most heartbreaking part. This could have been good. This could have been really, really good if it was done right. But instead we got the world's worst director making every possible bad decision like it's a marathon. Cats... There's just nothing like Cats that exists out there that I know of. It's utterly unique for its ambiguity, for its mystery, for its fun and complexity and simplicity at the same time. A musical like this deserved a production that was out of this world, but that's most definitely not what we got. So I might have spent so much time in this video hating on Cats 2019, but there's few videos talking about how to fix it. This movie could have been extraordinary if only it was done right. So, how do we fix Cats 2019? Obviously, we need to start with the aspect that made no one want to watch it. No CGI. No, James Corden, I don't care how revolutionary this technology is and how it's never been done before. Because maybe it's never been done before for a damn reason. Just because Jellicles can and Jellicles do does not mean Jellicles should. And they sure as hell shouldn't have. No, we're doing this with practical effect, like it should have been done from the beginning. Some people suggested that this movie should have been animated. And though there was supposed to be an animated Cats movie in the 90s directed by Spielberg, as an animator, it pains me to disagree. Like I said before, these are meant to be allegories for cats, not real cats. To make an adaptation of the musical, it would have to be with real-life dancers in live action. The reason being, as cool as it is to watch cute animated cat girls dancing, it's never gonna be as impressive as seeing a real-life, flesh-and-blood human perform 24 consecutive pirouettes. The art of dance doesn't get nearly enough credit, and a movie like Cats, done right, would allow us to get to know a lot of talented people we otherwise wouldn't know if it was just a regular animated movie. So I want physical costumes and makeup, but I wanted a cool visual style to go along with them. I don't want to just do the same stage costumes. I wanted to have them reinvented and reimagined. I want handmade, hand-painted sets with intriguing costumes. And for that, I think I know who I'm gonna call. And it's not the Ghostbusters, but someone who did amazing work in that same time period.
Dance, magic dance. Dance, magic dance.
Yeah, that's right. I propose we use the $100 million budget we've been given, not on creepy CGI, but on hiring the Jim Henson Company as our set and costume department. These people are of course known for gorgeous works like The Muppets, David Bowie's Labyrinth, The Dark Crystal, Where the Wild Things Are, and they were working on Netflix's Dark Crystal prequel as recently as 2019. Reminder, we got $100 million to burn. I think we got enough money to invest in something really good. Plus, there's another reason why I think the Jim Henson Company would be a good pick. Both their best works and Cats the Musical are aggressively 80s. I mean, look at those leg warmers, that keyboard synth soundtrack. Everything about Cats screams 80s. So I think if we combine that with a Dark Crystal sort of vibe, it would, 1, fit really well with the wave of 80s nostalgia we're currently getting in media, so I think it would be insanely profitable. And 2, it would pay homage to both Cats' original aesthetic and the Jim Henson Company's best-known projects. We get to work with an amazing special effects team and make sure all those talented artists and puppeteers get handsomely paid. Win-win. This is from Twitter artist Sai. She made a Cats 2019 fix that I thought would be a great style to go with for the actors' costumes. But I also gave it a shot myself. Here are some of my fixes for Cats 2019. Now we move on to the story. While it would make the most sense to have Grisabella as the main character, she doesn't get led into the group until the very end, which means we don't get to be with the Jellicle cats and see their numbers if we're following her. So, I still think Victoria could be a suitable main character. But I want to establish a proper parallel and connection between her and Grisabella, not some ham-fisted song about how she has to check her privilege.
But Jinlong, we need an original new song, or else we can't get an Oscar!
Fine, we give Victoria a new song. A proper I Want song at the beginning so we can establish her character. So what does our protagonist want in our story? We should keep it simple, like Cats was always meant to be. My idea is, Victoria is abandoned at the beginning as usual. She's visibly shaken, like you can sort of infer she went through something awful by her expressions. Then when she finds the Jellicle cats, as she learns about the Heaviside Layer and stuff, of course she also wants to be the Jellicle choice. She wants a chance to be reborn and start over in a life where she didn't have to suffer the way she did. This can give us a setup for a standard tournament or competition storyline like they try to do in the movie, but this time we know who to root for, our protagonist. We also got a time limit, which is until dawn. This can raise the stakes. Then, as usual, we meet the other characters, including Grisabella and the villain. Macavity in this version doesn't want to go to the Heaviside Layer. He, like Grisabella, used to be a Jellicle cat, but he was banished for doing horrible things. Instead of being sad about it, he wants revenge. So he does all kinds of things throughout the night to sabotage the Jellicles for revenge. Not because he wants to be reborn. I want to make him a villain who's evil, knows he's evil, and owns it. Villains like this are fun to pull off. Plus, as a bonus, might as well make him as flamboyant as possible. So then we have Grisabella. She's still the old lady cat who fell from grace, and of course I want to keep the parallels between her and Victoria. Victoria has a couple encounters with her, but Grisabella does not recoil from her because that wouldn't make sense. Instead, there's always someone interrupting or stopping her from getting too close, or touching her specifically. Eventually, I want to give Victoria an arc, going from wanting to be reborn to forget all the suffering she went through, to realizing the past can hurt, but she can either run from it, or learn from it. Yeah, it's a simple lesson done in The Lion King, but it can work here as the lesson she eventually learns. So she chooses to accept her past and start anew here, as who she is now with the Jellicle Cats. That prompts her to realize Grisabella needs this much more than her, as she lived a life full of regret and sadness, and acceptance from the Jellicles is what she needs now more than ever. So Victoria is the one to sympathize with Grisabella, all leading to memory. That way, memory still remains the emotional climax of the movie. I also want to create parallels between Victoria and Macavity. Like Victoria, Macavity also felt like he was wronged by others, mainly the Jellicles, but he decided to deal with his past by seeking revenge with feelings of bitterness. Victoria realizes that's not who she wants to be, and by the end she learns to accept her past and move on from it. So, I found the romance with Mr. Mistopheles a bit unnecessary. They try to make it cute, I guess, but I think shipping him off with Victoria was kind of a betrayal to Rum Tum Tugger and Mistopheles shippers. I'm honestly unsure if there should be a romance in the movie at all. But hey, that can be up for discussion. You guys can tell me what you think down below. So, Mr. Mistopheles. I think we can also add some more to his character. No one really seemed to draw parallels between him and Macavity, so I will. They both have magical powers, but ever since Macavity used them for evil and got banished, Mistopheles is afraid to use his and worries the tribe will look down on him. Give him an actual reason to be insecure about his powers, you know? Make Rum Tum Tugger the only one he ever confides in regarding that, so when the Mr. Mistopheles number comes up, it makes sense for Tugger to be the one singing, so that he can support his friend. Or boyfriend, I guess, whichever one we make it. So my final correction is to get a director who knows how to shoot a dance sequence. For God's sake, Cats is just as much about the dancing as the music. It stands to reason that the camera angles and shots should reflect that. So just get someone who can shoot dance sequences properly, that's all. And I think that's it, honestly. For something that's hypothetical at best, I sure put way more effort into this fix than I probably should have. I mean, the director didn't put more than 10% of effort in this, why should I? But I guess one silver lining I can take from this is that the movie Cats had a $100 million budget, and it barely managed to make 10% of that at the box office. So after this catastrophic failure, it's unlikely that they'll let Tom Hooper touch a camera ever again. And that's a good thing, because he shouldn't be allowed to direct anything ever again. This video ended up way longer than it probably should have been. I have no idea why I care this much about a musical about horny cats begging for death. I mean, I'll always be a theater kid at heart, and though watching this movie was physically painful, I guess I'll always have a bit of love left for the original Cats. In the end, this movie and everyone in it deserved better. The VFX team deserves so much better than how they were treated. Same for the orchestra. They didn't deserve to get blamed for the movie's failure at the Oscars. That was utterly disgusting, that Tom Hooper doesn't have the guts to get up there and admit his own mistakes, instead of having his two worst actors blame people who were just doing their jobs. Overall, this concludes this very long rant, I guess? Because that's what it ended up turning into. If you enjoyed the video, I want to remind you to give it a thumbs up and subscribe, as well as ring the bell for notifications. As usual, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.